studio by Bill Browder, a good friend of the programme. He's here with Evgenia Kara-Murza, human rights activist who's the wife of Vladimir Kara-Murza, and it's the second anniversary of him being jailed by Vladimir Putin. Welcome to you both. Bill, let me start with you. Just explain a little bit more about why you're here.
So Vladimir Kara-Murza is a good friend of mine. Vladimir was involved with me in passing a piece of legislation called the Magnitsky Act, named after my murdered Russian lawyer Sergei Magnitsky, which freezes the assets and bans the visas of Russian human rights violators and criminals. Vladimir and I campaigned all over the world for this. We got it passed in 35 countries, including the UK. Putin hates this more than anything. He tried to kill Vladimir twice with poison in 2015, 2017. Vladimir went back to Russia in 2022 after the war started, called Putin a murderer on television, and was subsequently arrested and sentenced to 25 years in jail, which is the longest jail sentence of any political prisoner in Russia. He's suffering the after effects of the poison. His health is in grave danger. And one of the reasons why Evgenia is here is that Vladimir is a British citizen. In addition to being Russian, he's British. And so we have been, it's 2 years since he was arrested, and we're here advocating at the government to try to do everything possible to get him out.
And I believe David Cameron has made representations, am I right?
David Cameron is one of the good guys in this story. David Cameron has been very vocal about trying to free Vladimir. He's using, I think, all the powers of the British government, or I should say almost all the powers of the British government to get him out. But we need to do more. We need to do more, a lot of it, and we need to get him out because Alexei Navalny died. He was another big enemy of Putin. He died. He was murdered in prison, and Vladimir is now the next target, and we don't want him murdered.
Evgenia, when was the last time you saw your husband?
In April of 2022.
And what state was he in at the time? Because he'd already been in prison, presumably at that point, or was about to go?
Actually, Vladimir was in Moscow when the full-scale invasion of Ukraine had broken out. But Vladimir traveled to Russia every month on a regular basis. So he was there. He was in Russia. And our oldest daughter was celebrating her 16th anniversary in early March. And Vladimir never, ever, before his imprisonment, missed our kids' birthdays. So he came home to celebrate her birthday, and after that he packed his bags and he went back. He returned. And that was, so we first made a stop in the UK, then went to Paris together because he participated in a PACE event on political prisoners. And that was the last day I saw him before imprisonment on the 4th of April when I flew back to the kids in the United States and he returned to Moscow.
Had you always feared that day might come?
Well, listen, my husband survived 2 assassination attacks in the past. And thanks to an independent investigation by Bellingcat, The Insider and Der Spiegel, we know not only the names, but the faces of the people who tried to kill him twice. We know that there is a team of assassins in the service of the Russian state, a team of FSB operatives whose only job is to eliminate opposition leaders, opposition figures. This is the same team that poisoned Alexei Navalny with Novichok. This is the same team that had followed Boris Nemtsov before his assassination. So, you know, we've always known that the risks were extremely high. And honestly, among these risks, imprisonment was not the highest. Vladimir knew that his life was in danger, but he identifies himself as a Russian politician. And he's always believed that in order to encourage people to fight, you need to stand by their side and share the risks and challenges that they face.
Is there part of you, though, that wishes that you and he could have just led a normal life like any other husband and wife with children? Or is the cause that he was fighting for so important that, I mean, you've obviously stood by his side, you support him, but there must be times when you wish it were different.
Anyone has those times. Anyone has good and bad days. Those days when you don't want to get out of bed and you don't see any point in continuing. But then, I know what my husband is fighting for. And I believe that as his wife, yes, I have, this is not my duty, but this is something that I will always do. I will stand by him. As a mother of 3 children, I need to show them an example of what it means to fight for someone you love. And as a Russian citizen, I have the responsibility to do everything in my power to stop the regime, to stop the aggression against Ukraine, and to stop repression in Russia, which means bringing closer the day when the regime in the Kremlin collapses. So I believe that the best way I can help my husband is by continuing his work. His work being the voice of all those political prisoners in Russia, his work on calling for sanctions against human rights violators, his work on calling Vladimir Putin illegitimate ruler. So that work cannot stop now that he's in prison. And the best way I can help him now is becoming a voice for him.
Presumably after what happened to Alexei Navalny, though, you are very concerned that your husband could meet the same fate. I mean, I hate to even put that to you, but it's what everyone listening will be thinking.
Well, again, Vladimir survived 2 assassination attacks. I know that he's seen as an existential threat by this regime. I know that he's seen as a personal enemy of this regime. Vladimir has done a lot to sort of deserve this status. I remember after the second poisoning, when someone asked him, like, what do you think now? Was it all worth it? And he said, well, now I know that I'm doing something right. This increased attention by the Russian state toward my persona means that I'm actually on the right path, and that work has to continue. If they're so infuriated by those sanctions, if they're so infuriated by my stance, it means that my work is effective. So,
are you optimistic that things could change in the short term in Russia?
In the short term, no. I don't think that it's going to be a work of a couple of days, no. But I believe that change in Russia is definitely not impossible, because I work with a huge number of dedicated, committed, intrepid people working both inside of the country and outside of it, doing everything that they can to bring closer the day when this regime ends. And I know that if people like my husband, if people like Russian political prisoners can send us words of encouragement from behind bars, we owe it to them to continue the fight. And actually, this is something that I need to point out. Yesterday is the 2nd anniversary of Vladimir's arrest. He shares this sad anniversary with another amazing Russian, Sasha Skochelenko, an artist from St. Petersburg, who was also detained on April 11th of 2022. So she's also, this is her 2nd anniversary of her imprisonment as well. She is a 33-year-old artist from St. Petersburg who replaced price tags at a local supermarket with anti-war messages. She went to prison for 7 years for that. So freedom has a high price.
Bill, I've got a text here from Joe who says, Iain, why did you not challenge your guest that Navalny was murdered? Does he have any evidence? I think I'll let you answer that rather than me come back on it.
Well, I guess we could start out by saying that this wasn't the first time they went after Navalny. You remember in 2020, Alexei Navalny was in Siberia, and he was on an airplane, and all of a sudden he went into convulsions, and he went into convulsions because somebody put Novichok, a chemical nerve agent only available to governments, a banned chemical nerve agent, in his underwear. He was supposed to die on the way to Moscow, but the plane took an emergency landing. The pilot wasn't involved in the conspiracy, and the paramedic who gave him an antidote wasn't involved in the conspiracy. And eventually, after being sort of in a coma and all sorts of terrible stuff in a Berlin hospital, he survived. And we all know who the people who did it. In fact, Alexei Navalny, if anyone has the opportunity, they should watch this movie about him, Navalny, which won an Academy Award, which has Alexei Navalny and some of his colleagues tricking one of the people who poisoned him into confessing over the phone.
But why is it that so many people in this country seem to give Putin, Russia, the benefit of the doubt.
Well, how do you know that's even a real person who I mean,
I don't.
You don't, because there's a whole floors in St. Petersburg fully devoted towards sending you messages, trying to convince you that there's like two sides to the story.
Good luck with that if you're listening.